Hey, what's up? This is going to be a very basic guide on crafting. So, crafting in Strife is pretty important. I've voiced the opinion that I don't think it's super influential in the match. I think player skill definitely trumps over any kind of crafted bonus you'll see in a match. And I definitely think if you're a new player, you should look elsewhere than to blame crafted items for the reason you're losing. Play more games, and then eventually you'll have enough time to get your crafteds up. But let's look at the basics of crafting. You can see we have all of the items in the game aside from boots and potions available in the crafting menu. If you click on one of the items, like a fell blade, you can see that it has one component as its base, as its foundation. It starts off with a power shard. This is if you were going to buy it in game, it would have one power shard and then the fell blade recipe, which in total would cost this number down here, 750 gold to purchase. So the recipe for the fell blade gives you 8 power, and the component, the power shard, gives you 6 power. So you get a total of 14 power from this fell blade. Now, something I want to discuss is the importance of acknowledging the recipe bonus. I've seen a lot of players, and not just new players, players that have been around for a while, they've added components, and even though it doesn't make the cost of an item exceedingly high, for example, if I added another power shard here, it still is putting you at a disadvantage because although you're getting another 6 power, the resulting recipe, it does not yield enough to warrant you putting it there, if you understand, because instead of putting an additional power shard onto a fell blade, you're better off moving up to a tier 2 item for a damage source and finding your damage there. For example, if you wanted that more power, then you can get something like a Reaper Scythe and add your additional power shard here because it fits naturally. You want to try and stay on the optimal number, and to do so, you want to rotate the existing components to something that you feel more useful. So I don't have any crafting or enchanting that I can use right now, but I'm going to go ahead and designate one hero, and we'll talk about that hero in particular, and I'll take you through what I did and why I did it. So I play a lot of Ray. So Ray will be the first example, and I've come to the conclusion that the essential items for my Ray build right now are going to be a healing rod. My healing rod is already 80% legendary because I've crafted it over time. I made a mistake early on when I made my healing rod, and I didn't switch the component. You can see the component for a healing rod is actually, let's get to it first. It's a basic health regeneration, and there's a lot of debate in the vitality shard as well as the basic mana regen, the clarity shard, if regeneration over time is worth it versus just getting base stats like flat mana, flat health, as you can get from the health shard and the mana shard. I think if I were to redo this, I would have probably put in a flat mana shard just because it would give me a substantial amount of mana. A basic mana shard gives you 55 mana. That's about 2/3 towards casting a mine, and being able to have an extra mine in combat is very significant. So I think having a bigger mana pool probably trumps a lot of different necessities as Ray. You can get power from a variety of different sources along the way. We'll look at my second item for the build. I decided to build a Blessed Cleric Chalice, and I got Brutality, but I'm not going to complain because it's 100%. I just crafted this today, and my component for my Chalice is the second biggest mana source. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. So when I went to craft my Chalice, I decided, hey, I don't really need power because I'm Ray. I already deal a good amount of damage, and I can get my power in a later source. I was just talking about the importance of mana and being able to throw down all those mines. Of course, if you don't know, Ray's landmines are a 4-second cooldown ability. So it is far more important to be able to throw down the 5th and 6th mine in the middle of combat than it is to have an extra 8 damage on each mine and only have a limited number of mines. So what I did for my Cleric Chalice is I got rid of both of these, and I picked the Mana Stone, which is the tier 2 mana, flat mana option. It's 105 mana. There's 2 reasons why I did this. The first is because it makes the item a little bit cheaper. You can see it's 1470 with the Mana Stone. Its base cost is 1535. The reason is the base components are slightly better if you have two of them. You lose a little bit when you just combine it into one. This exists when you're taking into consideration the Clarity Stone and the Mana Stone and even the Vitality Stone and stuff like that, where there's a tier 2 option. So if I were to pick two flat mana options, the mana shards at the tier 1 level, I would get, let's see, 110. So I get 5 more mana. That's not that big of a difference to me, and I think being able to lower the cost ever so slightly is going to help me because the Cleric's Chalice is an item you want to get out as soon as possible. That is my sustain in the middle of the fights. So I definitely like that option, and also the Cleric's Chalice gives me some mana regen from the recipe, as well as that extra HP. So it's serving multiple purposes. I'm getting an additional boost to my mana pool, I'm getting mana regen, and I'm getting sustain. So that would be my second item in the build. Of course, somewhere in the middle of that, I'd get boots, usually spring boots on Ray, because you want to be able to initiate. His stun is one of the most powerful in the game. And let's see. My third item is in progress right now. It's also a Seer's Eye. Seer's Eye is really good because its recipe gives you a lot. Most activatables don't give you that much on top of the ability alone, but Seer's Eye gives you 100 mana. So at the, it's a medium cost item at 2,085. It really is valuable. So I kept saying I want to increase my mana pool. Seer's Eye is where I decided to put some power in. So you can see, once again, there's an opportunity to condense these components into one slightly cheaper component. So I got rid of Power Shard, and I got rid of the Clarity Shard, and I put in a Power Crystal. It's slightly cheaper. You can see my cost dropped by almost 100, and this way I'll be able to get it out sooner. And since the recipe of the Seer's Eye already gives me mana, I don't have to concern myself with that. I already have good mana regen and sustain from the Cleric's Chalice, so this is my opportunity to get additional damage. So a Power Crystal in here, I feel, is very valuable. And of course, along the way, upgrading Seer's Eye gives you really good bonuses. My Seer's Eye is not legendary yet. It's very close, but not quite there. So I'll have to continue to upgrade it. And if you want to see legendary effects, your best opportunity is to check out strifehq.com. They have everything listed there. I got a rare bonus of magic armor, which is very solid. I'm pretty happy with that. And the last item I would use in a loadout for Ray would be a Hexbane. And this is my current Hexbane. You can see it has movement speed, another solid bonus. It's barely into legendary. And my Hexbane is crafted with 2 damage sources again. I crafted my Hexbane with a Power Crystal and a Power Relic. So if we go over to the Hexbane, which is under utility items, you can see it has another mana source, but I've already accounted for that. Mana regen isn't going to be nearly as significant because I'm getting to later stages of the game. I already have the healing rod and the mana regen from the Cleric's Chalice, and 1 Power Crystal is not enough. I want to be able to start hitting hard when we get to later game. So putting in a Power Relic really accounts for that and gives me an extra boost. And of course, the activatable of the Hexbane is amazing. It gives you a 3.5 Hex, which makes your enemy not able to use abilities or attack. And I think this is underrated because when you're not able to use abilities, that means if you catch out someone like a Rook when they shoot out their grapple, you can prevent them from actually using the second activate and getting back to their grapple. So there's a lot of opportunities to catch out heroes late game that don't have something like a Stone Skin, Inertia Boots, or a Pincer Pet to try and break their way out of that. So this is how I do it. I try and optimize, and I have specific objectives of what I want from each of my items. And then, of course, you can make your way to enchanting. And I think if you're just starting off crafting, you should probably save up your ore initially and designate what you would want to do. As you can see in my crafted items, I have a wide variety of items. I play a ton of different heroes, so it's hard to narrow down my focus. And I think that's a mistake in some regards because I could have a lot more legendaries if I had done so. But I also like to test things out, so I'm not too worried about it. But if you do find a specific role you want, it's not very difficult or time consuming to craft it up there, because if you get a rare craft or a legendary craft, which is a little bit more difficult, but if you get a rare craft here, you can always use your elixirs to supplement that and try and boost it up. And if you get lucky with the elixirs, you can easily get into legendary. And the initial boost from the next phase, the boost from common to legendary, from rare to legendary and common to rare, that's what you want. Uh, you're not as worried about the numbers. Like a level 1 legendary is the significant upgrade over a rare. Level 10 can wait. It's going to be a minor boost from there, but unlocking the legendary initially is your objective. And Seer's Eye legendary gives a slow on the activate of Seer's Eye. I think it ranges from 5% to 10% slow. So that's what I'm definitely aiming for next, and I hope to unlock that. But I just wanted to give an overview on why we craft items the way we do. And I want to, last thing I want to say, of course, is that here's what we see from time to time. Power conduit. You want it to be a huge power source. You can see its base cost is 55.45, so 5,545 gold. You can put 2 power crystals in here. This is probably the most common. It ups the cost by just around 400. That's not too detrimental, and that's the only way you can do it while maintaining a pure power-oriented focus. There's also an opportunity, I believe, to swap it around and make it a little bit cheaper. This is 5 gold cheaper, so that's obviously not significant enough for anyone to do. This is 15 gold cheaper, so you can play around with it. And if you want to try and get this item at an earlier stage in the game, it's definitely possible to just change the cost around ever so slightly. And even if you put the double power relic in it, 5,535, that's not too bad. So you can work your way around that. But the only problem with putting these high tier items are that you're not going to get the component earlier on. You're going to have to lump sum purchase this. So you're waiting for 2,000 gold for one power relic, 2,000 gold for another power relic, and then the recipe costs of 1,500. So you're not getting any boost in the interim. So if you find yourself in a position in a lot of games where you need something now, you're much better suited to going for this power crystal build. Even though it will make the item a little bit more expensive, you'll be able to purchase up the power crystal sooner than you would the power relic, and it will have a more effective instant impact in a lot of situations. So there's definitely a lot to take into account with the crafting system. I recommend you feel it out. A lot of people are judging it without trying it, but being able to control the components for your items is a really interesting concept, and I think a lot of us are having fun with it and enjoying it since you're not really locked into those builds, and a lot of the items already in-game are comfortable. I mean, even with my Ray loadout, I can easily purchase a Crystalline Shiv because I like its components. I like everything it has going for it. I can use a power conduit at base value because, it doesn't necessarily bring any attributes that I can't use. As a Ray, something that I wouldn't want on my recipe would probably be a Vitality Stone. I'm not really too worried about health regen over time because, in the middle of combat, it's not going to be significant for Ray because you're a damage outputter, you're a utility hero. You just want to get off your abilities and see what happens. And on top of that, I already have a Cleric's Chalice to maintain a lot of my health. So those are just some ideas on the crafting system. I hope they helped you. And we'll be putting this up on YouTube. See you later.